Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Today we're going to be working on masculine cards for any occasion, and I'm using the January Hedgehog Hollow kit. I am using the Directional Stars stamp set from that kit, and I loved the geometric shapes that were included in it. For my first card, I'm doing a slim line card. It is measured by, let's see, it's 4 by 9.5. And I'm going to do very simple heat embossing on this card and then add a sentiment on top of it. And my sentiment isn't part of the stamp set because I wanted this to be kind of a really masculine Valentine's Day card. That's what I pictured when I made this card, and I kept a lot of white space in the card. Don't be scared to use white space. White space is your friend. I actually have a blog post over on my blog about using white space in your card designs. Sometimes I think we feel like we have to fill up the entire space on the front of a card for it to be beautiful, and we don't. You can leave as much white space as you want to on the front of your cards. I did not put any background in it, nothing like that. I wanted these bold, beautiful stamps to stand on their own for these. So what I did first, as you can see, I didn't use a stamp positioning tool. I don't have any lines on my stamping block. I just put the stamp to the paper. I did use my anti-static powder tool all over this piece of cardstock, and it is Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, all over it. Some people are really scared of black embossing powder because any stray piece shows up really bad on it. If you don't have black embossing powder, the other option is you can use VersaFine Onyx black ink and put clear over top of it. You can use a black pigment ink and put clear over top of it. You can also use a stamp positioning tool, stamp it in black, stamp it in Versamark, and then stamp clear over top of it. I'm just flat out using black embossing powder. I have had really good results with it lately. I think it's bold and beautiful. When you use clear with a black ink, you don't get that raised black image that is really, really bold. It kind of mutes the black color of it a little bit. So I really like black embossing powder. To use it effectively so it doesn't show up all over the place, be sure to use heavy anti-static powder tool with it. That's my biggest suggestion for that. So I went ahead and I stamped this, and I just repeated the image on the top and the bottom of the card on my panel there. And I had a love sentiment die from Pink and Main, and this is several years old, but I have it linked over in the products, that I just wanted the word itself, just plain old love, and I added sending on top of that, and I stamped that in Havana red with an ink pad from scrapbook.com. And I'm just going to layer my sentiment together after I die cut it. I cut it 3 times. I'm going to layer it up using some liquid adhesive. And for dies, if you're not used to stacking dies like this, the best thing to do is to start with one letter and align it with your liquid adhesive. I do not recommend, if you've never ever done this before, I don't recommend using double-sided adhesive on the back of a cardstock because it's not very forgiving at all. And it's not my preferred method of putting word dies together. I really like liquid adhesive, and I think it just gives more freedom, and it adds actually a little bit of stability to the word itself, especially if it's really delicate. I'm using Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. My other go-to option, if I had not have picked up that bottle, would have been a Zig 2-way glue, and it dries temporary. It will dry clear, but if you put it together while it's still blue, it's permanent. I'm mounting this panel on a dark gray, charcoal gray cardstock base. I put something heavy on it to just let it dry for a second because that Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, liquid adhesive, does dry really quickly. And then I'm going to put the sentiment right in the middle here, and I'm going to add sending from another Pink and Main stamp set in that Havana red in just a second. And I found after Christmas, I think I mentioned this previously in another video, that Fiskars has discontinued my favorite paper cutter, my paper trimmer. And I have the paper trimmer that doesn't have the wire in it, but it has like the little metal, it has like the aluminum rail that goes up and down instead of a plastic rail. And so I'm having a hard time finding even replacement blades, and I don't want to recommend something to y'all that you can't get your hands on anymore. So I went ahead and I got the small Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer, and I really do like it. I've never really been a fan of guillotine trimmers just because I felt like the paper always shifted. But the little holder that's on top of it really makes a ton of difference, and I really, really like it. So I was talking through the end of the other card. Sorry about that, sharing my little guillotine experience here. We are moving on to the second card, and I'm going to do a small square card. I started out with a piece of paper that was a little bit bigger than what my finished paper is going to be. Actually, you could have cut this down to 4x4 and it would have worked perfectly. I think I started out with a 4.5 by 4.5. I am using some, I think this is Confetti pink ink from scrapbook.com. It's a hybrid ink pad, and I am just going around here in the circle and stamping this using the Gina K Wreath Builder. And I'm going to go back and add a diamond shape from the same stamp set and leave it at that. Now you could of course do this in any color you wanted to. I was doing everything in really muted colors for so long this day that I was like, I'm going to do something in pink. I don't care. I'm doing it in pink. You can do this in your man's favorite color, greens, blues, it doesn't matter. You can use any color on this. I literally at the end of this, I put the sentiment in the middle. I didn't heat emboss anything on this card. I didn't add anything special to it. I just matted it. I popped this up on some foam tape in the front panel, and then I matted a coordinating piece of cardstock behind this, and I put it on Desert Storm card base, and it is squared, and it is the finished size of it's 4.5 by 4.5, and that's really easy to make a envelope for, or you can buy envelopes, of course, that will fit a 4.5 by 4.5 card. So I'm going to trim this down a little bit. You know, I didn't want it to be off to the side or anything like that. I decided I wanted everything to be centered, and I was going to be very me and center everything up. I have a tendency to want to center things, and I'm trying to get out of centering things. I want to offset things sometimes too, but anyway, that's another story. So I did use my Tim Holtz platform. I need to get a new Misty. That's one thing I really need to get, is a new Misty, because we can't use this stamp platform. The stamp platform in the regular size is no longer available in the United States. So I will get a new Misty here before too long. I just haven't gotten it yet. So I'm going to trim down some paper here, and then we are going to put layers on here. I'm trimming down, this is a piece of foam tape, and you can get the sheets from scrapbook.com. They come in like 4.25 by 5.5, so it's like a traditional card size. And then they also have a little bit bigger sheets, or you can get foam tape or foam strips, either one. It's a ton of different options over there for foam tape that's really affordable, and I really like it. It's very stable. For my next card here, we are going to do a patterned background that is going to be pretty geometric and even all the way around. I'm stamping this in VersaMark ink, and my stamp was off center, so it was kind of throwing me off a little bit on aligning it with the background. I'm just visually aligning things here. I'm not measuring or anything like that. When you are going to do white heat embossing or any heat embossing on a dark piece of cardstock, use your fingernail to hold the paper down and pull the stamp up. Unless, of course, you're using a stamp positioning tool, then you don't have that problem. But that will prevent your fingerprints from being on there and getting the oils from your finger on the paper. Just use the back of your fingernail and it will work just fine. So I stamped the big stamp of this first, because on the stamp set there is a large and a small stamp of all of the different stars, the directional star and the star burst and the Art Deco style star. There's large and small ones of all of those, and then there's some diamond shapes in there too. And the magic of heat embossing. I could sit there and watch that all day. So I stamped all of that. You notice there's some places where it's off a little bit, the spacing's off, the alignment's off, and I'm good with that. If you want it to be perfect, use a stamp positioning tool. But I'm showing you that you do not have to do that at all. So it has some really big spaces in there, and I'm going to put the smaller version of that directional star in those open spaces there. Now, when I made this, I was like, I don't want to cover up that big center one. So I'm doing something a little bit different in that, you'll notice also that, real quick, I turned this around when I stamped it because I didn't want to reach over and put my hand in the VersaMark ink by accident as I was stamping it, you know, stick my pinky down in it or anything like that. So I turned the paper around. Don't forget you can do that. You can turn your paper any way you need to. So anyway, I didn't want to cover up that big centerpiece because it's just so bold there. And also notice that I stamped off the edges of the paper for the pattern to make it look like it's bigger. It's a part of a bigger whole there. So what I did for this is, this is the option that you have for stamping in black. VersaMark ink, VersaFine ink is a pigment-based ink, and it is really great for sentiments, and I do really like it for sentiments because it gives a really clear image there. And VersaMark ink will do the same thing, but for black sentiments, this is my favorite way to do them. And then I just use some clear embossing powder. I finally found my stamp chamois. I had lost the thing. When I moved my craft room, I didn't know where in the dickens I had put it. And I found it and cleaned it up, and so you'll see me use it every once in a while now. I trimmed down that sentiment piece, and you see here I'm like, oh, it needs something else. I pulled out a piece of silver sparkle paper, silver glitter paper. Use liquid adhesive on glitter paper. You know, a tape adhesive is not going to cut it. It's just not going to stick. So, and put something down on top of it, leave it there for a second, and be done with it. Then I popped this up with some piece of foam tape behind it, and that's it. That's the entire card. It's done. I put it on a white top folding note card. I did not add a whole lot of extra stuff to any of these because these stamps are so beautiful. You don't really need to. I mean, if you want to, of course you can, but you don't really need to. Now, this one is a super fun one. I had to throw a rainbow in here, and so what we're going to do is we are going to use this star as it looks like a firework, but it can also be a star. The sentiment that I used with this particular one is the moon is the first milestone on the way to the stars. So I did pull the moon out of that stamp set that's up there to the top left and added it to it. But when I saw this particular stamp in the group, it just screamed fireworks to me, and I wanted to do something fun and colorful with it. And I don't think that, you know, this would be really good for a little boy's birthday or whatever sentiment you wanted to add with it. An encouragement. This could be a fun kids card on any side, but it can also, you could also do these in like silver and gold, and it would be still a great card for any guy to get too. So change up the colors, and it's a perfect card for the guys. And we struggle to get to make guys cards because, you know, we want to put pink and glitter and all that good stuff on them, but we can still make beautiful cards and not have to worry about all of that. And yes, I'm wearing something other than my black sweater that's always in my videos. It's been unseasonably warm here in Lynchburg, Virginia, and it has, I had a terrible time with this piece of foam tape. I forgot to cut this part out. Sorry. But I had on a pair of tie-dyed leggings and a bright blue shirt that day, and so I was feeling rather rainbowy myself. So these are my masculine cards. I hope you have enjoyed this, and here's my mess up. and I'm going to show you how to fix it really quick. You can finish watching this while I continue to remind you to head over to the Hedgehog Hollow shop and get your January or any other kit that's still available, and future kits as well. She has a subscription over there that you can sign up for, and you'll get your kits automatically once a month. And you'll see our design team producing throughout the month as well. Head over to Jill Cameron Creations for more information about designing with white space. I'll include that link in the Hedgehog Hollow blog so that you can head over and check that out. And as always, the products I used are going to be linked below and over on the blog. I'm not going to put this over on this particular one over on my blog because I have some other stuff I'm putting over there. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.